Today we're going to be learning about the triangle sum properties. Our objective is that we will be able to classify triangles by their sides and angles, find interior and exterior angle measures in a triangle, and use properties of isosceles and equilateral triangles. A triangle is a polygon formed by segments joining three non-collinear points. Some ways to classify triangles. We can classify them by angles, and we can classify them by sides. If they are an acute triangle, all three angles are acute. If it's an obtuse triangle, one angle is obtuse. If it's a right triangle, then one angle is a right angle. And if it's equiangular, it means all three angles are congruent. And remember that the equal sign with the squiggle on top means congruent. To classify them by their sides, if they're equilateral, that means all three sides are congruent. If it's isosceles, at least two sides are congruent. So technically, an equilateral triangle is also isosceles, and a scalene triangle has no congruent sides. All the sides are different lengths. Let's talk about this triangle. It's got an angle of 70, an angle of 30 degrees, and an angle of x degrees, and we want to find out what that missing angle is. What we need is the triangle sum theorem, and what that says is the three angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So we know that x plus 70 plus 30 has to equal 180. Combine like terms, x plus 100 equals 180, and if we subtract 100 on both sides, we find out that x is 80 degrees. Let's look at this triangle. It has two congruent sides. We know this because it has the congruent tick marks on there. And what the base angle theorem says is the angles across from congruent sides are also congruent. So if I go from this side, across from it is 2x. Across from this side is 70. That tells us that 2x must equal 70 since the sides were congruent. If we divide by 2, we get that x equals 35. Now what about b? If angle A is 70 and angle C is 70, because we know they're congruent, plus b, that has to add up to 180. 70 plus 70, combine our like terms, 140 plus b equals 180, subtract 140. The measure of angle B must be 40 degrees. Our next theorem deals with exterior angles. So if we have x out here, how do we find that if we know these two interior angles? So the exterior, meaning outside, angle is congruent to the sum of the opposite interior angles. So what that tells us is the exterior angle, in this case x, has to equal the sum, remember that sum means add, the two interior angles across from it. So 20 degrees plus 50 degrees means that outside angle must be 70 degrees. Now let's put together a couple of ideas. The variable expressions represent the angle measures of the triangle. Solve for x, then find the measure of each angle, then classify the triangle by full name. So since these are angles of a triangle, we know they have to add up to 180. So I'm going to add them all together. 2 plus 4 plus 6 would give us 12x equals 180. Divide both sides by 12. And we get that x equals 15. I'm also going to put that over here. So if we want to find the measure of each angle, measure of angle 1 would be 2 times 15. Measure of angle 2 would be 4 times 15. And the measure of angle 3 would be 6 times 15, which gives us 30, 60, and 90. Since we have this 90-degree angle, we know we can classify it as a right triangle because it has one right angle. Since all the angles are different, we know all the sides will be different, so it is a right and scalene triangle. Go ahead and fill in your summary,